Hello and welcome into week 15, week one of the playoffs for many of our leagues. Welcome in. Hopefully you still have something to play for. I got Scott riding shotgun today. Scott, how are you doing?
Doing great. Happy to be here for my season finale appearance. I love doing this, and it feels like the season has just gone by in the blink of an eye. And excited for one last ride with you in 2024.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, you're doing such great work over there with the D line. It's just a fantastic resource for leagues and streaming stuff like that. So appreciate all your work too with all of that you're doing for the site and all of us listeners. So
Yeah, and like I've said before, I play all the positions, so it's fun to be able to talk things outside of D line. But yeah, if you have obscure D line questions, just throw them at me because I'm every week recommending players that are rostered in like 0% of sleeper leagues and MFL leagues. So I've got a pretty deep bench when it comes to especially defensive tackles, but this season branched more into defensive ends too. But excited to talk all about the side of the ball that doesn't get enough attention except for in the IDP community.
that's right. So we got some questions already zooming in here this morning, so we'll get to all of those that we can. And again, remember, friends, if you are in time crunch and need your question answered right away, super chats are available. They'll get bumped right to the front of the line. And with that said, let's get started. We got some questions here all over. Got some great comments here already, like Only Jock in the Village. Have a great show. No questions for me this week. Have all first round buys. So appreciates us, and we appreciate that. That's a fantastic thing to see and read right away to get started with. So Sebastian has a couple questions here. He got a defensive line question and then a linebacker question. So Scott, looking here, he's got a couple good options here. He needs to start, I believe, one out of these five. He's got Christian Ellis, or four, excuse me, that's five. Christian Ellis, Zach Allen, Leonard Williams, Zach Zeeler, and DJ Woodham. He gets 1.5 for a tackle and 4 for a sack. So
Yeah, lots of good options here. For me, if it's just one, it is Leonard Williams just by a hair over Zach Allen. I'm looking at my DT spreadsheet of all the players that I took a look at against my metrics that I use for streaming, and Williams is 0.13 points ahead of Zach Allen, which is as close as it can possibly get with the system that I use. So slight lean, and the difference, in case anyone's curious, better run defense grade, so a little bit more sure in that department. Both great snaps, both obviously great pass rushers, but I would still go Leonard Williams just by a hair over Zach Allen. The other guys are good options, especially Sealer. So if you're able to play more than one, Christian Ellis, I know he has that dual designation, which makes him a really sexy name, but it hasn't really paid off all that much like we thought it would. So for me, in a playoff type situation, it would be Williams and then Zach Allen just behind.
is that scoring format kind of teasing? For me, it is anyway, teasing me to play Ellis because he's playing a lot of that linebacker role. And if he's able to get, we're almost banking on one of the other true defensive linemen there to get a sack, and so that would be, and for me, his name is teasing me right now because if he can get, 4 or 5 tackles, that's going to be almost equivalent to 2 sacks. Are we thinking Leonard Williams is a 2-sack game here against Green Bay? Or that's kind of where I'm at. Then just playing devil's advocate here.
I guess I'm making some assumptions here too that there's going to be other things like passes defended. So those batted balls at the line that granted linebackers can get that too when they drop back into pass defense. But, if you look at the passes defended, they usually accrue more to the peripheral players like the safeties and the corners, and then the big guys that are right up there in the front. So assuming there are some other things that go into this, and these are just like the 2 big categories, it's still Williams for me by a nose over Allen. If this really is all that you do, yeah, I could see it being a lot closer because I do think Ellis will end up with a couple more tackles than like a Williams or an Allen. I don't know that it's going to be twice as many tackles. He just doesn't. I don't know. He hasn't really blown me away just yet in terms of what he's been doing. I've been trying to look at some of his more recent output here. and he's also only playing, like last week, 68% of snaps. I know we think of linebackers or even these hybrid kind of linebackers as, always out there on the field, and defensive linemen always getting rotated. Zach Allen routinely plays over 90% of snaps. Leonard Williams was even at 70% last week, so that's better than what Ellis was in the previous week. And even before that, 68 was a high water mark. Before that, it was 54 for Ellis. Before that, 69, 58. You have to go all the way back to week 8 to see Ellis play over 80% of snaps. Whereas Allen in particular, but even Williams on occasion, can get that kind of volume for you, which we know volume is king in IDP.
Absolutely. Perfect. That's a great answer, Sky. I appreciate that. Talking me off the ledge there with Ellis. I got him in another league, and I think I might have to go make a swap right now. So Sebastian has a linebacker here. He needs to sit one of these fantastic S linebackers, Speed, Spillane, or Sherwood. I'm seeing all of these right now as kind of like late LB1s this week, early LB2s. Their matchups aren't great for the opposing matchups that they're going to have. And I can't sit Sherwood. He's just been too dominant the last couple of weeks. And so then it comes down to Spillane and Speed for me. And both of them don't have the greatest or cleanest of matchups. We look at Denver, who's given up only 15 point or tackles to linebackers over the last 3 games. And the Falcons aren't much better. So for me, it's going to probably come down to the efficiency of offenses on the other side. And I think Atlanta is probably a better offense. So I'm going to probably go Spillane here and sit Speed.
Yeah, I agree. I've got Sherwood as one of my top 5 linebackers for this week. So he is absolutely locked in. I had some questions about both Speed and Spillane this week, in large part due to some of the things that you mentioned. But I do have Spillane about 6 or 7 spots higher. So I would go Spillane.
Yeah, and I think you're splitting hairs. They're both decent options. Like if you're sitting one of these, you're in a great spot. So nice job drafting, Sebastian.
Which
Good
makes
luck to you
sense.
this week,
It's
hopefully.
probably the playoffs. So, we're probably going to be seeing a lot more, other than people who are like, oh man, Max Crosby is out. It's going to be a lot of these, hopefully, good rosters we're going to be seeing.
And hopefully rosters that we promoted all season. So hopefully that will make it even better, right? Summer, a great fan of the show, has some questions. She's got a couple tough lineup decisions here. We got Levante David, Akeem Davis-Gaither, Tyrese Knight, Luke Gifford, Nick Bolton, and Jordan Hicks here. So we need 3 linebackers there. Again, there's some really intriguing names here. Gifford is one, a name that if either Kenneth Murray or Jerome Baker sit, I think Gifford probably is worthy of a start here this week. He showed up amazing last week. He just had like 10 or 12 combined tackles, stepping up for both of them. He wore the green dot. So Mike Woolert was a big fan of him this week, saying that like if either Murray or Baker are out, Gifford would be the start there. So I'm kind of ringing that endorsement there too. It's going to be really, really hard to sit David. And then Bolton has a pretty decent matchup too. So for me, it's probably going to lean David and Bolton. If either Baker or Murray are out, Gifford's going to get the start. And it's nice because they have a noon game, so we'll know that decision right away. But then if one of those two, or if those two play, then I'm going to go Tyrese Knight. So long story short, David, Bolton, Gifford if Baker or Murray are out. And then if those two suit up, then I'm going to pivot to Tyrese Knight versus Green Bay.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on the top 2. It's definitely David and Bolton are the ones that I would not be agonizing over in this decision. It's really that last spot because it's a little bit of the unknown of Gifford. Granted, it's a great role if he ends up in it. And we've seen players that haven't gotten a whole lot of run suddenly step into a great role and produce. Kind of like another guy on this list, Akeem Davis-Gaither, that first week that Logan Wilson was out before he hit IR. It was like, man, I was at that game and I didn't realize he was out. I was like, why is Davis-Gaither in so much? And I look up and he has 10 tackles. So he's just, put into that Pratt role that had been very, very productive from a fantasy perspective. So I get that appeal to Gifford. My reservation is playoff based. And I am a lot more risk averse in the playoffs. We know what Tyrese Knight is. We know that he is in an environment that is also very productive, and he's been able to have some of that productivity. So I think it's splitting hairs. I've got them very close to each other, but it would probably be Knight just over Gifford for me. But the top two line is exactly the same.
Are you at all concerned that Knight hasn't been 100% snap guy yet? He's
Yeah,
like hovering at
it's funny.
80%ish.
Yeah, if one of my buddies is listening, he's gonna be like, "You just told me not to start Knight," and that's because he was between Knight and Cody Bart and Josie Jewell. And I said, "Look, Josie Jewell, he's probably not going to continue this production, but it's hard to bench him for Knight who isn't playing the snaps." So that is absolutely a concern. It's documented in my group me to Anthony just 2 days ago. But I think it's you at least know what you're getting with him. With Gifford, it's a little bit of projecting what it's going to look like. And I know the linebacker room there has been in some shifts, and Gifford has seen playing time. So it's not like, just picking a name out of a hat, like with some of the other spots that might come up later. But I don't know. I'd still lean Knight, but I'm not going to scream at you, how could you possibly play Gifford overnight?
Yeah. Yeah, the 100% of snap shares last week for Gifford's pretty nice. So, and then Summer had one more question about the defensive backs here. For me, this one's actually pretty easy. It's going to be Tyrion Johnson and Amadi. Both have great matchups. Amadi's going to smash this week versus the Commanders. They're going to throw the ball. He's going to be involved in a lot of slot coverage plays. So he's just been crushing it the last couple of weeks as far as the tackle numbers go. And Johnson gets a great matchup versus Detroit. They're going to funnel everything to his way versus Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I love those two matchups. Delpit is just that guy that I can't come around on. He's always in a great position to do well, just doesn't put up those like stats that we always want to see. And Peppers, he's a New England Patriot defensive back. Don't know where he's going to be or stuff like that. At least he's on the field and not in the courtroom. So
yeah.
So anything different there, Scott, for as far as the defensive backs go?
I'm with you on Taron Johnson. Amadi is the only place. So I've got Johnson as a tier 2 play at corner because I have this all aggregated by 5 position scoring because that's what I do most of my leagues in. But still, I have Johnson as a tier 2. I've actually got Delpit as a tier 2 as well. I'm also a little bit biased towards safeties, just muscle memory from all the years of playing IDP, where if you do have the option to play safety or corner, you tend to go safety. And Delpit also is someone I have granted, like, my rating of him is based purely on metrics, but I have a soft spot for him because he has had that production before. I know Amadi has as well, but Delpit, helped me win a championship in a league last year. So it's like, he's definitely a good play. He's in that safety role. But he does produce tackles regularly. This season has been, not as good as last season, but anyone could have seen that regression coming. Last season was just craziness. So I'm with you on Johnson. I'm split between Amadi and Delpit, but again, you could convince me either way.
Yep. Good luck to you, Summer. Hopefully we'll see you back here in week 16. James has a 2 point per solo, 1 point per assist, 2 for a sack. He needs 2 defensive backs. Which 2 of these defensive backs would be on your bench? So we're benching 2 of these between Derwin James, Amadi, Duggar, Kyle Hamilton, Hamlin, and Chin. Hamlin is an easy sit for me this week. He picked up a late Friday practice tag. So those are always worrisome going into the weekend. So Hamlin is a sit for me. And then for me, it comes down to probably Duggar or Amadi here. And like in the last question, I picked Amadi, so I'm still going to stick with him here. I think those other guys offer really high safe floors, and Amadi is your like home run hitter there in that lineup.
Yeah, and granted, they play different positions, but I've got Amadi higher in my CBs than Duggar, and even looking, they're in the same tier, but Amadi is at that very top of that solid deep tier. So when I say like tier 3, those are still players that I'm happy playing, but I'm more happy playing in like 16 team leagues or leagues where I'm starting 2 to 3 safeties and corners and, sort of that 11-11 kind of style of league. But I would I would lean Amadi over Duggar here, because Duggar is sort of in the middle of that solid deeper tier for me, whereas Amadi is near the top of that tier. So even though they're in different positions, especially, I don't mind this one as much too, because you're also pairing it with some safer plays at safety, like Derwin James and a Kyle Hamilton. I know Chin is a little bit more boomer bust, but that actually might help you with the scoring setup. So yeah, I'm with you. I think the two that I would consider definitely Hamlin, and then probably Duggar for my second.
Nice. All right, good luck to you, James. Frosty C's got to start two of these linebackers. We got Bolton, Tyrese Knight, Kaiser White, Jack Campbell, or Quincy Williams this week. So we've outlined a couple of these names already. We saw Bolton's name here already today. Knight is here. Kaiser White was in a really bad matchup last week, but he came through in a big way. So he's kind of on the upswing here a little bit as far as matchups go. So he's a name to consider. Quincy Williams just hasn't been the flavor for us this year, especially with Sherwood there. And then Jack Campbell obviously is finally getting a chance to play. So do you have a strong feeling here, Scott, about one or two guys here?
So of these guys, I actually am pretty high on Campbell now that he's getting the opportunity. He's produced from an on-field metrics standpoint, probably more so than a fantasy standpoint. His PFF grades are great. His run defense grade is an 86.7. Assuming Buffalo returns to more of running the ball, that can be helpful for him there. So I've actually got him as about my LB 7 or 8, and Quincy Williams is probably my next one, but Knight isn't far behind. Kaiser White, I was really high on him in the beginning of the season. I know he's come through in some games, but I have him all the way down at a tier 3 play, whereas Campbell is a tier 1 ideal. Williams is a tier 2 very solid. So I'd be happy starting any of these guys, but you're not asking, hey, would you be happy starting all these guys? You're asking which of these two should you start? And for me, it would be Quincy Williams and Jack Campbell.
Okay. And I'm gonna pivot. I think Quincy. I'm gonna take Quincy or Jack Campbell out. Actually, he's a really tough matchup. Buffalo is not a great team versus the run for whatever reason. They just don't give up a lot of points to linebackers. So I'm actually going to go Quincy Williams and Kaiser White here. White's got a great matchup versus New England. They've been giving up one of the top 5 overall points to linebackers over the last 3 weeks in this season. So they're just committed to the run there. So I think that Kaiser White's going to have back-to-back decent games this week. So good luck, Frosty. We got you one for sure locked in. The other one, you're going to have to flip a coin or call another show or something. So got a question here about the defensive back positions. Got some amazing options here. Holy cats. This is a dream team here. Kyle Hamilton, who I really like this week because Washington didn't travel with the team. And so I know they're playing the Giants, so that makes it feel a little like meh, like with the offense. But I think Hamilton's going to have a decent bounce back week here. We've already had Amadi on many questions. Smith has been an intriguing name, especially now with the injury to Antonio Winfield Jr., who's not going to be there. So he's been healthy. Smith had a clean bill of health this week, which is, I think, the first time all season that he hasn't had a injury designation heading into the week. Xavier Woods has been fantastic for Carolina with tackle monster. Metellus had a great week, bounced back last week finally. And then obviously we like Johnson. So, wow. Where do you even start here? Who do you like?
Yeah, so for me, the easiest one is Hamilton. I mean, Hamilton is my safety 2 this week, only behind Xavier McKinney. So it's hard to walk away from Hamilton. So he is absolutely locked in for me. Like you said, though, these are a lot of other really good options. In terms of the safeties, I'm probably bigger on Metellus I'm bigger on Metellus than Tyke Smith this season. I like Tyke Smith. I'm playing him in some of my modified best ball leagues where I can afford to have some of that chop that is normal. But it's definitely Hamilton, then probably Metellus. Woods isn't too far behind, but Woods is behind. So, and I get Amadi is great, but again, it's some of my risk aversion. and safeties just tend to produce better, assuming flat scoring here. Now, if you're in CB premium, then it'd probably be with Amadi alongside Kyle Hamilton. But if you're in a flat scoring for DBs, then I probably would skew more towards Hamilton and Metellus as the second. But what do you think?
Yeah, Hamilton's for sure. He's a guy you can't sit. You drafted him to be your starter. We're in the playoffs. You got to start him. And then for me, it's going to be between Xavier Woods and Metellus. Metellus finally was stepped up with a decent game last week. He had a great matchup and he came through this week playing the Bears. Not a great matchup, but I think something that divisional game they're going to get up to play. So it would be Metellus for me. And if it wasn't Metellus, I'd probably go Tyrion Johnson just because of that high floor that he offers. And I think that game's going to be a fun game, a lot of offensive plays. So a lot of offensive plays leads to opportunities for tackles. So good luck to you, Frosty. Got some great lineups there. Carter, just wanted to say thanks for all the advice all season. I ended up with the number 1 seed and bye this week. I'll be back next week. That's fantastic to hear. Those are good ones. Sebastian's got an offensive question here. Bucky Irvin, Rome Odunze, or Quentin Johnson. Bucky's going to be a tough start. I know that he's leaning towards playing, but I'm going to go with Odunze here just because Quentin Johnson can't catch, and Bucky Irvin might re-injure that back and not play. So, Hannah, good morning. I've got a lot of questions this week, so hopefully it can help myself. But a massive underdog in the playoffs. All right, so must have started Cooper Cup this week.
Yeah.
Pick one.
I'm with you.
Jeffrey Simmons, Matabike, or Jalen Carter. I'm already starting Harold Landry for some reference if you pick Simmons. So let's start one at a time here. So, Scott, who do you got? I know that Matabike has an amazing matchup this week versus this Giants offensive line is So
yeah, I'm playing Matabike in a couple of places. I even picked him up in the invitational to stream him at DT, as crazy as it sounds, but DTs just get disrespected in some leagues, and you have some guys like that are out there to stream. But I have Simmons as my overall DT1 for this week. The talent is there. The Bengals love to pass the ball. As much as I hope we're going to keep Burrow upright, and Burrow's been more elusive this season than he has been in the past, Simmons just presents a tough matchup. For frame of reference, the next person I had on my list was Kobe Turner, who has already played and did end up having a monster game. So, hopefully the model holds all the way through sort of the top tier. But I've got Simmons as my number 1. I agree with you that there's a great matchup for Matabike, but I've even got Carter as number 3, just because Pittsburgh has even given up more points to interior defenders. The Giants may have given up more sacks, but Pittsburgh is allowing more of that interior pressure than the Giants are. And so I see it as a slightly better matchup, even though we love to, and I've told people throughout the season, hey, when all else fails, start players who are playing against the Giants, because, odds are you can get a sack somewhere there. But I think for the first question, it's Simmons, but these are 3 like top 10 options. So
yes,
I don't think if someone else talks you into going a different way, you should be kicking yourself, because all 3 are in a great position to score.
Yeah, they are. Does having the caveat there of having Harold Landry already in your starting lineup pivot you, or you just play your best players?
I tend to play my best players. I was telling you before about that buddy who asked me about Tyrese Knight, who I see is coming up again. He has Ernest Jones, and he was actually leaning Knight so that he knew that, if there is a blow up game, he's going to hit it one way or the other. And even if he bets wrong, he's going to have a high floor. And I got that appeal. I still suggested Jewel over Knight for him, but I don't lean into that mindset. If it's a great matchup to exploit, I might want to see multiple players. And, if you've been checking out the articles, there will be several weeks where I'll be like, okay, you want to be looking at Aleem McNeil and Josh Pascal, or, if it's a really good matchup, I like having multiple players from a particular defensive line, or if they're both really good players. And in this case, Landry is a really good player. So is Simmons. That doesn't scare me off. I don't really use that too much as one way or other, except in some really specific leagues. Like I'm in some modified best ball leagues where it takes your best ball scorer, but you choose who's on your active roster and who you deactivate. And in some situations like that, I love having the CB group so that I know I have a floor because at least one of those CBs is going to hit in a given week, and I don't have to guess which one's going to hit. So I'll start them both, and whichever one ends up being in my starting lineup, I'll be happy about. But I don't do that as much with other positions, to be honest. So for me, it's Simmons, and the Landry thing doesn't scare me. I hope for my selfish sake as a Bengals fan that doesn't work out for you, but I could very well see it working out. So I think that's still a good way to go.
Moving on to the second question here about the linebacker course. She needs to pick 3: Tyrese Knight, Luvu, Speed, and Marst Lafua. I was working on his name. He was part of my segment this week during the Wednesday recap. I'm probably going to sit him just because we don't know the role for sure. We know that Overshown injury was devastating, and he came in and played every snap for him once he left. I do know that also Kendricks is kind of banged up, questionable going in, so he might be the linebacker to roster this week, but there's a lot of ifs there. And like Scott mentioned earlier, this is your playoffs, so trying to be getting the guys that are going to play the majority of snaps regardless. And Knight, Luvu, and Speed are definitely going to be those guys for me.
Yeah, I agree. I don't, I loved Overshown. Kendricks has been great, but it's one of those situations where I just don't know that if suddenly we have Leofau, or sorry, you said his name better than I would because I have not been practicing it, or even Damone Clark ends up playing. I don't know that those would be names I'd want to roll with in the playoffs. So give me the first 3 as well because they're proven commodity, especially Luvu. I mean, Luvu, I don't know if he still is, but at one point he was LB1 in fantasy for the season. So it's hard to move away from that in the playoffs.
Yeah, right. And we have this big body of work. We have 14 weeks of stats right now. Let's stick with what we know, Defensive back question. She's got Morig, Duggar, Chin, and Metellus. Needs to pick 2. I'm going the last 2 there, Chin and Metellus.
Yeah, I was thinking about this a little bit. Thinking back to her initial point that she's a big underdog, I'm trying to think if any of these feel like a bigger swing. And Chin to me is a big swing guy. Metellus is a safer guy. So I like that pairing for the purpose of big underdog. You don't want to have everything be a big swing because if you ends up with all 0s and 30s, it's still a 15 average. So if you have a 15 and a 30, that's a whole lot better spot to be in. So I think I like that. I don't think I can really talk myself into a different configuration that sort of satisfies both of those goals.
And like you said, she's chasing here a little bit. So does Duggar have like that high floor or like a high ceiling, like a Chin or Metellus? I don't know that they do. I could see, I know Caleb Williams has been really good about not turning the ball over, but I see that being in the realm of possibilities today. So I'm going to go the last 2 there. Moving on to the offensive piece here, half point PPR. We got Murray and Herbert. I'm going Murray just for the rushing upside. Herbert's got not a lot of weapons this week. I think they're going to run the ball quite a bit. And then for me, it's going to be
up a lot too. I mein, he's been in and out of 2 or 3 games. He keeps picking up questionable tags and playing and getting knocked out and coming back. I would definitely be Murray.
And then Ridley or Brian Thomas Jr. I'm going to go Ridley here. Just been too consistent. And then with Mac Jones under center for the Jags, I'm not expecting a whole lot. So, Hannah, hopefully we answered all your questions. Hopefully you get your home run swings that you need this week, and we'll see you back here in week 16. David needs to start 2 of these guys: Rat versus Detroit, Delpit versus Kansas City, Peppers versus Arizona, or Belton versus Baltimore. So Belton is stepping up for the newly added IR person, Tyler Nubin, which was sad to see him go down. Rat picked up a ding here too in the practice on Friday for the Bills. I think he's going to play. I've already kind of said my love or disdain for Delpit, but actually I think he might have to be a play here for David. I think I'm going to lean Delpit, and I'm going to lean probably Rap in that Detroit game. I think that's going to be a sneaky good for defense and offense alike.
Yeah, I've got them both as tier 2 plays. So I'm in agreement with you there.
I do like Belton, but I'm just kind of worried about where he's going to play. If he's going to play the Newbin role, or if Jason Pinnock is going to slide over to the Newbin role, and then Belton will slide into that Pinnock role, which hasn't been very great for defense. So
yeah, and Newbin was more productive in that role than pretty much anyone expected. So you have to also wonder how much of it is role and how much of it is just talent. And even if he gets that role, he's not the same player as Newbin. Will he be able to produce the same kind of way? I know some guys you can just plug into a system and they're going to generate you points. But again, I keep coming back to this is either the playoffs or your week before the playoffs. I don't want to gamble more than I have to unless I'm, like chasing points like Hannah was talking about in the last couple of questions. Give me safety.
Yep. And that's a good point too, Scott, just to mention about if you're chasing or if you're safe points, where you're at right now, having these Thursday night games, you kind of have a barometer of where your team is at. You're like, I had Cooper Kupp go against me, so I don't have to be as risky in my lineup decisions. I just need some safe points in some of these spots. So drop one: Flowers, Hopkins, Thielen, or Devontae Smith. I'm going to drop in Hopkins there just because he's the least consistent of the group. Kind of boom or bust from week to
week. I think
week.
Hollywood was just activated too, so we don't know what his role is going to be, but it's just another mouth to feed and more headache that you don't need.
Fantasy Sports needs to drop one of these linebackers: Campbell, Jewell, Cashman, or Greenlaw.
Oh, this one hurts my heart, but I have to say it's Greenlaw. Greenlaw is someone who I've had for a long time. Had an awesome first half coming back from injury, but if I recall correctly, didn't play the second half. And the other three are too good. I mean, this is four good options, but for me, it's Greenlaw is the drop.
Yep, agree. And he came out with like some soreness, which is probably natural after recovering from that. But the way their season's going, are they just going to play it safe, shut him down? They got Fred Warner's already banged up playing on a busted ankle and stuff like that. So, the season's going nowhere fast for the 49ers. So are they already looking to 2025, or is that going to be, something more came about that, why he was sitting that whole second half? Obviously, linebackers sitting the second half in San Francisco is a big thing this week. So whether they were healthy or not. So that's a story for another day. But yeah, we're dropping Greenlaw here. Just the other three are too talented, and there's less risk with the other three. Which safety do we like in New England more, and why? I'm still a Duggar fan. I think he's like that centerpiece of that defense, but they kind of want to build around. Just hasn't been healthy this season. It hasn't been consistent. Peppers is probably a real life better player for real football than for fantasy. He'll have those boom weeks, which is great for like DFS or for your best ball teams, but not somebody I want to consistently rely on week to week in my start leagues.
Yeah, to me, they're very similar players in that, coming out, they had a ton of hype, a ton of potential. Like I still remember watching Peppers play at Michigan and how he would wreck games. And Duggar, would do some similar things. It was like, oh man, these guys are going to be together. This is just going to be crazy. But I think long term, I'm still a little bit higher on Duggar just because he's a little bit younger. I don't know that we've necessarily seen his ceiling yet, whereas I feel like we have seen Pepper's ceiling and it wasn't what we hoped it would be. So I think long term, and probably even for the rest of the season, I'm a little bit higher on Duggar than Peppers, but I think they both are attractive fantasy assets just for slightly different reasons.
Should I continue his role with Zach Allen? Skywalker wants to know, should I continue to roll with Zach Allen in the playoffs week 16, 17, or drop him for Gross Matos, Floyd, Sweat, Osai, or Kayvon Chason?
Yes. Sorry, and the first part of the question, Zach Allen has been amazing. I say yes to, not just as a big fan of Zach Allen. I wrote him up as a streamer, back a year or two ago when it was, people were figuring out who he was. But also I am rolling with him in the playoffs in one of my leagues, in that league where I picked up Matabike this week, and there's lots of other options. I would guess probably all of these guys that you have listed are available in that league, and I'm not sniffing at a single one of them in exchange for Zach Allen. So give me Zach Allen. He got me here. I'm confident that he can help to keep me in.
Yeah, and he's playing like at a Max Crosby type pace too. Like he's playing a ton of snaps, and you just don't get that from a defensive line position to do that. So yeah, definitely keep rolling, chase volume. We're all about that here. So Zach Allen or Cam Hayward right on cue. Hayward's been very consistent the last couple of weeks as far as scoring and plays. They got a great matchup this week versus Philadelphia. So I'm probably going to lean Hayward here just a little bit. Probably biased because I'm starting him in a league too. But I just think he's been very consistent over the last like 5-6 weeks as far as scoring goes.
Yeah, and I actually not actually like I disagree with you all the time, but I agree with you here. I've got Hayward as my DT 7 on the week, and Allen is my DT 10. So both DT 1s, just razor thin margin. But like you, the biggest differential, well, actually 2 differentials for me. Hayward is a better run defender, so he's more likely to get you that tackle floor, which is really nice, especially in a week 15 scenario. And 2, they both have good matchups. I'm looking at it season long. Indy gives up an average of 41.1 points to opposing defensive tackles. Philly is 44.19. So those are both in the higher range, just from a perspective, putting those numbers into some context. But I'm Hayward just by a little over Allen, but I'm starting Hayward in one league and Allen in another. So I think they're both phenomenal options.
Yeah. Totally agree. Good luck to you, Josh. We'll hopefully see you next week. Oliver wants to know, crucial question, Highsmith or McDonald this week? Appreciate you. Pittsburgh getting Philadelphia is like top 3 matchup for opposing defensive line. It's really hard not to go Highsmith here. The only thing is there's so many cooks in the kitchen in Pittsburgh. You know, you've got Herbig, you've got Highsmith, and obviously TJ Watt there. So then it just becomes like, do we feel confident in Highsmith 60% of snaps, or do we want to roll with McDonald's like 75, 80% of snaps in the game? So I think the matchup prevails here. I just like Highsmith as a higher ceiling, higher floor, I think, for me this week. So
yeah, I agree. And I'm also going to be curious to see if that, 58% holds because Herbig has been so good. I was also really surprised when they added Preston Smith at the trade deadline. They haven't utilized him too much, and he was the person who took a significant step back with Highsmith returning, in addition to Herbig, obviously, because Herbig was the starter. But, Herbig is that third piece that they're rotating in more now than Preston Smith. But I'll be really curious to see if Highsmith returns to those 80, 88, 89% snap shares this week. And it was just kind of a ramping up situation because for several weeks it was Highsmith going to play or not? So he was close. So in situations like that, where it's not just, they're getting him back as soon as possible, that it is this gradual thing, it might be some of that gradual uptick in snaps. And I think the talent is just better too. I like McDonald. I like McDonald a lot. I like both these guys a lot long-term in Dynasty. I'd be happy to have either of them. If I had a third round pick in a league, I'd probably trade a third or a fourth because I'm cheap with trades. But I'd be happy to acquire either of these guys in most of my leagues. But this week, Highsmith.
Yeah. And Oliver follows up with it. It is big 3 scoring, so you're getting points for hurries and quarterback hits and things like that. And I just think that Highsmith, that it just adds to his value. So good luck to you, Oliver. Thanks for playing big 3 scoring. He lost Newbin like many of us. He picked up Belton. Whole Belton drop him for week 16, 17 for Merriweather, Edwards, Smith, Chin, Connor, Blackman, or Murray. So a lot of options on the waiver here is for him. Probably for me, it's probably going to be one of those Tampa Bay Buccaneer players or Chin. I would rather have one of those guys and Chin on my lineup or bench than Belton at this point. We know who Belton is. So I'm going to probably swing for upside either with Merriweather or Smith on that Tampa Bay piece. Merriweather played quite a few snaps last week. He played almost every snap, I thought, last week.
Yeah, 82%. So good,
80%. Yeah.
good rate.
So yeah. And then Smith played 64% coming back. So yeah, I'm probably going to go Merriweather or Chin as my replacement. So that's who I'd probably want.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give Harry some options here. If you are happy with the rest of your lineup, then I would probably lean Blackman because he is a 100% snap share guy. Pretty good floor. I've got him, pretty close to tier 1 in terms of safeties for this week. But if you're a little bit more unsure, I do think Chin has more upside. Like I know in the question you can put that Chin is inconsistent. Yeah, but I think Chin's ceiling is higher than a lot of these other guys too. So if you're chasing that upside, it's Chin. If you're protecting or you have great upside in other places, it'd probably be Blackman for me because I see him as the safest of all of these options.
Yeah, and that's, Scott, you bring it back to that same great point again, too, about where is your team at? Do you need safe high floor or do you need home run? And so obviously week to week will be dependent on that, depending on your matchups and things. But yeah, Blackman is just really steady Eddie. He's going to be consistent for you. So, and if you need a higher swing upside, if you have like a high floor as your second defensive back, somebody who's very consistent with tackling week in and week out, maybe you put a lottery ticket in there like Chin. So. All right, Scott, we're going to blast through some questions here. We're starting to get to that 30-minute mark here between questions. So, Frosty, with a potential blowout with Baltimore and New York Giants, are we valuing the Baltimore defenders this week? I don't think we have to worry too much about the defensive starters for a team. We're going to get what we need to out of them. I think Roquan can do, yeah.
This is another one-word answer for me. No, I'm not worried about the Baltimore defenders. We've been wrong on potential blowouts a ton of times this season. I've tried modeling that. It hasn't worked. These are two studs. Start your studs.
Yep. War Clouds lost Max Crosby yesterday, like many of us. Picked up Leonard Williams. Should I play Sealer, Danico Autry, Will McDonald, or Keon White instead?
No, just play Williams.
Okay.
Hot hand. I have him highly ranked. Other good options, but overcomplicating it. Play Williams.
Is Sealer pretty close in that mix?
Sealer isn't too far off, but I just know, I have Sealer as a tier 1 play. Williams is a tier 1 play. They're both good options. Houston, a little bit better matchup than Green Bay, but both slightly advantageous matchups.
Yeah.
So Sealer or Williams, I would lean Williams, but you could convince me otherwise, but definitely one of those two.
So Groundhog Willie asked about Greg Rousseau's output to continue. He was the clip art of the show this week. Really love his matchup this week versus Detroit. They're giving just pouring points to opposing defensive linemen. I don't know if it's going to be a sack party for him or not, but I can definitely see a lot of tackles this week. Detroit loves to run the ball. They make a point of running it, so Rousseau's going to get a lot of tackles. He's going to see a lot of Montgomery. He's going to see a lot of Gibbs this week. So I really like him from a tackle output this week. Maybe not in the sack department, but definitely a high floor for him this week.
Yeah, I trust his output. I would be starting him. We've already had that one.
Yep. I'm going Tracy for sure. Can't trust Bucky. He didn't practice all week. Tracy's going to be for sure volume this week, Chris.
Agreed.
Good luck to you there. My league starts only one IDP. We got to work on that.
Yeah,
I got to work on that. So Eric wants to know, should sacks get you more points? Would you go Nick Bonito or big play for his upside or Zach Bond? I'm going Bond. It's just so much easier for a player to get 5 or 6 tackles versus one player getting a sack. Bonita's been a big play for sure. But Bond has just been a very consistent play in his own right. He's been capable of getting sacks, and this is a great matchup for him this week too.
Yeah, I've got Bond as my overall LB1 this week, and Bonito as in tier 3 for edges. So, if it was like Parsons versus Bond, it'd be a tougher decision for me, but it's Bond because the talent is just so much higher.
Josh says, good morning. Hope you have a great week. I need one IDP flex. Kyle Van Noy, TK Smith, Geno Stone, or Ardarius Washington. Well, Washington for sure is out. He didn't even make the plane ride to New York. Chances he could make it on his own and play, but he's dealing with a personal issue and some shoulder stuff. So I'm going to say no to him. I feel I love Smith this week as like a upside. So if you need a home run, it's probably going to be Smith. Geno Stone has been losing. Is he the one that's been losing snaps to
No, Von Bell lost
Battle?
snaps. So it's
Okay.
Stone and Battle who are getting all the run right now.
Okay. Well, then maybe that's their answer right there. A Stone consistent play.
Yeah, because Tyke, 64%, 85%, 24, 60. Yeah, I don't love Stone. And I'm a Bengals fan, so I'm prone to love all of the Bengals players, but I'd plug my nose and play Stone.
Yeah. Josh has an offensive question. PPR, Charbonnet, Chase Brown, or Mixon, Chase Brown?
Yeah.
Chase Brown he's getting, especially in a PPR, he's getting a ton of work in the passing game. I know Charbonnet had a great game last week, but it's hard to not play Chase Brown.
Yeah, and I'm too scorned by Mixon being gone and seeing how great he was doing in Houston for so long, and actually watching Brown's put up more impressive numbers than tape. Given I watch all the Bengals games, I like Brown. I hope he pans out. I am less convinced that he's the future of our running back room now than I was at the beginning of the season. But that's a longer conversation for a different kind of show on a different day.
Well, I'm excited to have that conversation soon because I'm curious. I'm starting to do the mock drafting thing where I see, who's going to go where. So we'll get that for another day. So JJ has a linebacker question: Christian Ellis, Isaiah McDuffie, or Luke Gifford? For me, it's very easy if Jerome Baker or Kenneth Murray are out for the Tennessee Titans. It's fire Luke Gifford. McDuffie's probably going to be losing snaps this week to Adrian Cooper. Is going to be back and healthy for the Packers. So that takes a little shine off of McDuffie. And then Christian Ellis, like we kind of outlined earlier, JJ, he's just kind of like this fringe, like fun name to start, but not really being productive with his snaps and playing a lot. So hopefully we get some clarity on if Gifford is going to be the start. He's an auto one. If for some reason Murray and Baker are both in the lineup, then I probably would pivot to a Christian Ellis just because he has the potential to play more snaps than McDuffie.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree.
Chris wants to know picking two. So this one's for you here. Sky's got some fun names at the defensive line position. Joseph Asai, DJ Woonham, Jadeveon Clowney, who is back and practicing this week, and then Mr. McDonald, and then Greg Rousseau. He gets 1 point for a solo tackle, half for an assist, 3 for a tackle for loss, and a sack. So a potential sack could end up being like a 9-point play here for him in this league. So what are you thinking here, Scott?
I think it's the last two. There might be some better matchups to be found in other places, but the talent and the snaps, Osai is still a rotational piece. I love Woonham. I've written Woonham up a lot this season because he's still criminally under rostered. Clowney coming back is a guy who has good upside as well, but the talent with the snap shares, Rousseau 75%, McDonald 83% last week. Give me the last two.
All right. Yeah. And I'm with you there. So Josh we need to sit one of these. So not start one.
Oh, okay. I'd sit Charbonnet. I'm not sure if Walker's playing or not, but regardless, I just like the other two better.
Yes. Yep. Very much the center of the offenses for those two. Linebacker question for Josh: Luvu or Quay Walker this week? Depending on the scoring system here, Josh, if you have a sack-heavy league, I'm going to tend to lean Luvu. But if it's just a tackle-heavy, I'm probably going to go Quay Walker here. Just been pretty consistent with his high floor every week for tackles. So,
yeah, I'm Luvu all the way. You can't talk me out of starting him, regardless of format, just because of how productive he's been. I like Walker too, but I am rolling with Luvu in a couple of leagues, and if I had that decision to make, that's one that I would stick with.
Yeah, he has been playing fantastic. The Saints are a little sketch with their offense. I don't know who's going to I mean, they're down a quarterback, they're down
Yeah.
2 receivers, they're down a tight end, they're down, they down a dinged up running back. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But that's all it takes is one play for him to make his start worthy. So,
Oh yeah.
Paul, good morning. He needs some help. He needs to pick 2 linebackers to sit, having trouble deciding. TJ Edwards, Ernest Jones, EJ Speed, Jermaine Pratt, Deion Henley, and Christian Harris. So I can see why you are having problems deciding who to sit. This is a great core here. I'm probably going to sit Christian Harris for sure. First game back, potentially coming off that year-long IR visit. And then for me, it's going to probably come down to between Pratt and Henley. Do you have a strong preference here, Scott, on one of those two, or maybe totally different way to look at it?
Yeah, for me, it's
Pratt.
actually Speed. Speed would be the second. I'm in complete agreement with you with Harris. Harris is a little bit too risky for my taste, but yeah, I'm not sure what it is. I mean, the PFF grades aren't good, and we know that doesn't always translate to productivity. Look at Zach Cunningham. Look at lots of people throughout the years. But given I do still weight that kind of talent metric, that knocks Speed down a little bit in my rankings compared to Edwards. Edwards also has a much better matchup. Pratt has a much better matchup in terms of fantasy points allowed to opposing linebackers. So I know it's Harris is one. I'm just trying to find Henley real quick. I feel like I'm really high on Henley too. Yeah, Henley has a better matchup, better grades. I know Speed is a fantasy production guy, and in a lot of other situations, I would be very, very happy to play him. But in this particular case where you have to sit 2, the 2 for me would be Speed and Harris.
Okay. Yeah, I could get behind that. Harris for sure for me. And I'm probably going to sit Pratt. He just doesn't play the same role that he did in his old role. Now that he's Logan Wilson, we kind of see that. So Speed has just been pretty consistent for me. So Harris for sure is the sit. And then Paul, you got your decision between those other last 2. Sean just picked up Akeem Davis Gaither, and he wants to know, should he start him over Bolton? I think Bolton is still the start here.
I agree.
Good luck to you, Sean. Alec, tough week this week, but which linebackers to start? I already got Campbell, Quincy Williams, Gaither, Franklin, Sherwood, Hicks starting, but I'm trying to see if I swap out with Clowney or Lloyd or Cooper. If that is Devin Lloyd, is that a sexier pick than Gaither for you this week? I know you're high on him.
Yeah, sorry, I was just laughing at the fact that you're able to start 7 linebackers in this league. That's kind of wild. But I would probably stay Gaither over Lloyd. I haven't been, I'll be honest, I haven't been as locked into the Jacksonville snaps after just the nightmare that was the first part of the season. I kind of shied away from them. And then when Foye got hurt, just the mess that it was there. So, I haven't really paid Lloyd a lot of attention, but I know that Davis Gaither is playing 100%. Yeah, Lloyd was at 77% last week, playing well. I mean, he's getting great PFF grades, playing the Jets, which are not a fantastic matchup for opposing linebackers on the season. So I think I would probably stick with those first 7 that you have listed. Clowney is too boom bust. It's hard to convince me to play an edge at a linebacker spot unless I'm desperate. And I think Cooper is just coming back from injury or just regaining a starting role. Or I can't remember exactly what's going on there, but still there's too many question marks with Lloyd and Cooper. Whereas we know everyone else that you have listed, we know what they are and what they're going to do.
Yep.
They're capable of doing. We don't know what they're going to do. We wish we knew what they were going to do, but we know what they're capable of.
So Fantasy Breakout's got a couple questions here back to back. First one's right up your alley here, Scott. Which DL should he play of these 5, 6? It looks like Simmons, Zach Allen.
It's crazy to me how much love Joseph Osai is getting. I like him, but he's still very much in a rotation. I know Hubbard has fallen out of favor in a lot of ways and will probably be gone in Cincinnati, but Hendrickson is still locking down that other side. Murphy is still getting sprinkled in there a little bit because the Bengals don't want to give up on him entirely. But yeah, Simmons. It's for me the first 4 options are all much better than the 5th, and even the Bucks DL. I like Cansey. I've just never been as big of a Cansey guy. Got into it with some of the other guys about Cansey earlier in the week, but for me, Simmons is my DT1 for the week, and Allen and Williams and Matabike are all DT1s, but not the overall one. So give me Simmons.
Okay. Fantasy breakouts. Next question is Buddha is my defense back, so no worries there. But should I start at linebacker Sherwood, Speed, or Davis Gaither, Christian Ellis, or Jewel? Pretty good situation, but ranked the top 3. Sherwood, Speed, and I'm probably going to go Jewel here over David Gaither and Ellis.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then offensively, picking one running back out of Dowdler, Breece Hall, start one of the following. If Breece Hall is playing, he's my starter. I think they play. Yeah, they have an early game, so we'll know that one. So I got to start Breece Hall. He's just too involved, especially in any sort of PPR's format. And then one of the following wide receivers, Jameson Williams, Hopkins, Cooper, or Watson. Pick one as the remaining flex.
For me, it's probably Cooper.
Yep.
I don't know how much of that is legacy for me, but these are all these are all dart throws to me. You don't know who's going to have that boom week. To me, Cooper is at least more of a possession receiver, so he has an easier path to get there beyond just a big splash play compared to a lot of the other guys that are there. So it's probably Cooper for me, but I'm not gonna die on that hill.
Yep. And then we get to pick one as a flex. I'm always probably going to lean the running back as my flex over a wide receiver just for consistency piece. So we'll get the guaranteed touches out of our 2 running backs, and we got our lottery ticket in Cooper then. So team defense here. Do we want to start the Chiefs or the Jets? So the Chiefs are taking on. Who do we got? The Chiefs. Chiefs taking on the Browns this week, or the Jets are taking on the Jaguars this week. So on paper, it probably looks like it should be a Jets defensive weekend. But the Chiefs against Jameson Williams or Jameson Winston led offense is good for a turnover or 2.
Yeah. So I think that's the tiebreaker for me is you're probably more likely to get turnovers out of Cleveland. Both of these have some great pass rush specialists too. So assuming you get some decent points for sacks, that was a little bit of a toss up for me, but honestly, I'd probably even lean Jets pass rushers a little bit more over Chiefs pass rushers over Chris Jones and suddenly Tershawn Wharton. But yeah, give me the Jets defense, just more opportunities for interceptions. I mean, although Mac Jones isn't exactly the most turnover proof guy in the world, but lean Jets.
So Alec has another league he's debating on his last IDP flex spot. Do we go Peyton Wilson versus the Philadelphia Eagles or Hewitt versus Houston is taking on later the Dolphins, who are a great matchup. But if Christian Harris is back, that will probably be a bad start for Neville Hewitt. So
I mean,
is it is easy to say wait and see if Harris plays?
Yeah, I mean, Wilson played, I think, 49% of snaps last week. He had that touchdown, which makes his numbers look great. I can't remember if he had the touchdown or the strip, but he had one big splash play that make his fantasy production look a lot more productive. Whereas last time he played, Hewitt played 70% of snaps. This is one where I wouldn't have super high expectations for either. You at least know what Wilson's role is. If Harris plays, you don't know what Hewitt's role is. Maybe Wilson, but these are both dart throws for me.
Yeah, I'm probably going to wait till see if Harris plays at the during the 11 o'clock time when the active players come out for the first set of games. If Harris is out, then it's a slam dunk for Hewitt for me. If not, then it's going to be kind of a head scratcher because, like you said, they're both not probably going to be 100%. Hewitt probably is a little bit safer play in a return role there for Houston, but
yeah, let me
maybe
throw
that matchup versus the Philadelphia Eagles, I think, is the tiebreaker for me. I'm going to go, if Harris is out, then for sure Hewitt, but if Harris is active, then I'm going to go Peyton Wilson.
Yeah, let me throw a real curveball at Alec here. Since this is your last IDP flex spot, take a look at DL Streaming 101 Week 15 on the IDP show. I'm sure there are some of these defensive tackles, defensive ends that are out there in your league that might have a lot more upside than either of those guys. So I know you always want to play linebackers when you can play linebackers, but given this is your last flex spot, I would be looking at an upside play on the defensive line over either of these guys. I don't like either of them this week, and I'm guessing there's going to be some decent options for you at other places. I mean, heck, even at corner, look at Johnny's article. If there's an ideal matchup corner out there for you this week, I would play an ideal matchup corner over either of these guys given the circumstances.
Yep, great point. And like those resources are amazing over there at the website too, between whether you need corner help, when you need defensive line help, linebacker help, there it's got an expert group of researchers over there. Our crack team is doing a great job. Speaking of secondary, Skywalker, which safety plays the Winfield role this week? So I think Merriweather was the one that stepped up last week in the absence of that, but that might have been just an in-game pivot, so with a week of knowing that Winfield's out, does Tampa address that situation a little bit differently? I'm still probably going to have Christian Inzian, probably going to be the 100% snap guy there for sure. Merriweather's probably going to play a little bit more, and then Smith is probably going to be that third slot corner option there for them. So I don't know if there's a true replacement for Winfield. It would probably be by committee more than you're the guy.
Yeah, that strikes me as the most likely outcome too. So don't have much to add there.
Do I trust Diabate or Davis Gaither as my linebacker 3? Gaither for me.
Yeah, I'm surprised that in looking at my modeling, I have Diabate higher. We've got good snaps on both. Davis Gaither actually outsnapped. Matchup with Tennessee, 41.1 versus 35.4, so better matchup. I think it comes down to, it is the PFF grade. There's a 20-point gap in PFF grade between Diabate and Davis Gaither, but I like Davis Gaither more as a fantasy asset. And this is one of the places where, I've fine-tuned all of my modeling for defensive linemen to see what things actually predict fantasy output, and that's how I come up with my streaming and everything. I haven't done as much of that for the other positions, so this is one place where I feel like my data may be misleading me a little bit, and if I crunch the numbers a little bit harder, it might go otherwise. But all that to say is I think it's probably closer, but if I had both these guys in one of my leagues, I would start Davis Gaither, but the data is telling me it's closer than it is in my mind.
So going with your gut, not your head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Alec just wanted to give you a shout out here. He never thought about playing that. So looking for that option. And I love the sub in of Worley. He has got a great matchup versus Cincinnati. He's just been a tackle machine there. Mm-hmm. So that'd be a great pivot. So glad that worked out that way. We'll jump back into our questions here. We'll go. Rogru, good morning. Happy football playoffs to you. Hopefully that you're on a bye, resting well this week. Also, which defense would you start for Eric? He's looking at Denver or Washington this week. So Denver has
the Colts.
Okay, so or Washington taking on the New Orleans Saints with 0 offensive starters. Washington's also getting back Lattimore, which isn't probably IDP relevant, but it's team defense relevant. I'm probably going to lean Washington here just because Indianapolis probably has a better offense. a chance to score points on them. Whereas I don't know that a Jake Hayner led offense is going to be kind of a scary proposition, especially with both, losing both wide receivers. Olave is not going to be in there, obviously, from the start. And then who was their speedster the first couple weeks that was just housing everything to the end zone?
I'm blanking too. Sorry.
Yeah.
But no, I
So they'll
agree.
be without him. Obviously, Taysom Hill's not in there. So that offense is just really not exciting. So I'm going to lean Washington, hopefully that they can keep them knocked down. Ant needs a PPR heavy tackle league. So I don't know how many points any of these guys are going to score in a PPR league for you as far as receptions. But in a linebacker tackle heavy league, we got Dean, Ernest Jones, McFadden, Jewell, or Speed. Nakobe Dean in a great matchup is for sure in for me. Ernest Jones is for sure in for me. Then it comes down to one of the last three, McFadden, Jewell, or Speed. McFadden's obviously going to be stepping up playing against Baltimore. Great matchup. And without Okereke is going to be there. So I'm probably going to lead actually McFadden, I think, this week in this one. I think the matchup is just going to be too enticing.
Yeah, it's Jewell for me over McFadden. I have McFadden in between those last ones, and I know Jewell is going to come back down to earth at some point because we've seen him come down to earth many, many times before. But I'm still riding the hot hand there, and I agree. McFadden's in a better position now, obviously, with Okereke out, but it's Dean, Jones, and Jewell for me.
If Tyler Geiger cannot play, Cooper DeJean, Jabril Peppers, or Darius Washington if active. So Washington, we're kind of leaning out just as far as not getting there. I think DeJean has probably got the higher ceiling, probably the higher floor too, just with everything. So DeJean is probably our go-to there, BJ.
Yep, I agree.
Good morning. Need to pick two of these defensive backs. Duggar, Peppers, they're flavor of the week, apparently. Dane Belton, Ugo Amani, and Chin. Love the show. Thank you. Thank you, JP. I think it's the last two for me. Combination of high floor, high ceiling with those last two.
Yeah, I'm all right with that. The New England is just too messy. Belton's new role, Amadi and Chin. We know what we're getting. Roll with them.
Yeah, welcome to the club. Ooh, that is a tough one. That's a tough pill to swallow, especially week 14 going into 15. So good luck to you, JP. One wide receiver, one flex. Lamb, Evans, Connor, Dowdle, or Hall. I'm going to go AJ Brown in a squeaky wheel and then Evans here. So two wide receivers, AJ Brown and Evans for me.
Yeah, no, I would go AJ Brown as the wide receiver, and then I'd probably go James Conner as the flex. I'm just like you were earlier with some less attractive wide receiver options. It takes a lot to pull me off of a running back in the flex spot. CeeDee Lamb is definitely close to being able to do that, but James Conner has been sneaky good this season. He hasn't really ceded the role to Trey Benson like everyone thought he was going to. So I'd probably go with that huge boom upside of AJ Brown, and then a little bit of a safer floor with James Conner. If Prescott was still there, then it might be Lamb, but he's not. So it's probably Conner for me in the flex.
All right, Scott, we're looking at about 250 viewers online right now. We've got about 20 minutes left. So we're going to go rapid fire to get through to the end here. So rough week. Yes. All right. Needing two between Cansey, Granderson, or Keon White. Summer needs two of those. So.
I like Cansey this week. Good matchup against the Chargers, who have been good to opposing interior defenders. And Keon White hasn't been popping for me like he was earlier in the season. I'm trying to see exactly where he is so I don't steer you wrong. Yeah, I've got... so I actually have White just ahead of Granderson. The reason I couldn't find White is he's an edge in PFF, and that's where I pull my positions from. I know he's a DT in some fantasy platforms, but for me, it would be White and Cansey, just because of the better matchup than Granderson has with Washington. But it's close.
That's where I was at right away. Cansey and White. So Yeah. So, quick story: we are raising book money for a book of vending machine at our school, and so month of November was Beard for Books. So, I'm letting the kids vote on how I'm going to shave this off on Friday. So we'll see what the look is like. So we've got some very interesting options out there. We'll just say the least. I won't be rocking it much longer after Friday. So we'll
I was
see.
gonna say, tune in next week though. Like I'm
Yeah,
going to be
no,
on.
it'll be,
I've got to
yeah,
see
it'll
that too.
be. I'll be like Mr. Wilson off of Tool Time for next
Yeah,
week.
so
So
we call a tease in the industry. You know, you're
is that what it is? We'll throw that out
you're
there.
bringing people back next week already.
Put that behind a paywall. So, Slick, what's up? AJ or Evans this week? Knicks or Goff? Need to pick one. I'm gonna go AJ Brown, squeaky wheel this week. I'm gonna go Goff against Buffalo. I think they're gonna keep throwing the ball, and I'm probably gonna go Dowdle as my flex option.
Yep, agree on the first two. I might lean Cook. I know Cook has been disappointing lately, but that's got to end at some point. I know everyone loves Shakir this week too, but again, I'm with you on a running back. I just go a different one.
I think Jose had the same kind of question already. He asked who's starting AJ, having Evans, Lamb, Connor. Yep. Took care of you, Jose. Good luck to you. Need 3 defensive backs: Nixon, TK Smith, Rapp, McKinley, or Xavier Woods. Nixon's for sure in for me. Woods is for sure in for me. And then maybe Rapp is my third choice there.
Really? I'm a huge Xavier McKinney guy. He is my safety one this week.
Okay.
So I'm rolling with him. I wouldn't be afraid to have him and Nixon in the same group, and Xavier Woods would be my next one, and then Rapp, and then Smith down a little bit further. Just the snaps and the tumultuous nature of that secondary right now. But yeah, I'm huge on McKinney.
Yeah, and I guess playing Seattle, I could see that too, just because they're going to get a lot of opportunities to play back there. So yeah, you could talk me into that one. Having a rough week. I have Cup, Winfield, Newman. Please pick 2 defensive backs. We did this one.
We had the first part of this one, but not the second. And for the second, between Zach Allen and DeForest Buckner, give me Buckner. I've got Buckner just a little bit higher. Allen actually has and they're in the same game. Allen has a little bit better of a matchup in that India is giving up more points, but Buckner just better grades, better talent. So it's close, and Allen has the snap share too. I mean, it is. You can't get a whole lot closer. You know, it's like my 6 versus 10, but I would lean Buckner.
Okay. Good luck to you, JP. Phil needs to pick 3: Gennard, Knight, Barton, Henley, Speed, or Dean. So we're looking at a couple different positional matchups here for me. Henley's in for sure. Dean is in for sure for me. And so looking at one more, who you got, Scott, as your third option?
I go Greenard as the third.
Okay.
You know, I know it's a risky play, but I feel like you have a great floor with the other 2, so you can afford to take a swing on the third.
Perfect. Need to sit just one of these: Sherwood, Henley, or Campbell. Need lots. Stupid Cup. If you need upside here, I think Sherwood and Henley are probably your options. Campbell is probably going to be a steady Eddie safe floor in the middle, but I think Henley and Sherwood's tackle upside is much greater than Campbell's.
Yeah, and my read of the question is that they can only play one, and if you can only play one, it's Sherwood for me. But if you're indeed sitting one, then I agree. It's Sherwood and Henley.
Need 3 of these: Leonard Williams, Cam Hayward, Burns, Bonito, or Jonathan Grenard. So Jonathan Grenard, obviously he's one of our boys. He's going to be a start for us this week. Burns gets that matchup versus Baltimore, which sounds like it should be good, but Lamar Jackson is just really tough to bring down. But I'm actually going to lean Bonito, Grenard, and Hayward here as my 3.
This is a place where we're going to disagree in more than one
That's
place.
okay. Yep.
I'm not as high on Bonito this week. And again, he's a person who I love all the success. I wrote him up really early in the season as someone to pick up as a streamer. So the better he plays now, the more, of a great prognosticator I look like. But I just don't know that this is the week. I've got Greenard and Burns as tier 1 edge plays, Benito all the way down at tier 3. Cam Hayward and Leonard Williams are right next to each other as tier 1 DTs. So I understand a little bit more safety and less variability when it comes to edges over DTs, but I'm not going to do a 2-tier jump for where I have Benito this week. So give me Hayward, Greenard, and Burns as my 3.
Perfect. Nope, that's good logic there, Scott. Good. Looking at some stashes here, BJ wants to know Matabike, Herbig, Gervin, Dexter, balance scoring. If I were ranking them, I would stash them just how you have them listed. Yep. Matabike, Herbig, Dexter.
Yeah, Herbig doesn't seem to have a really clear path to an increased role. Dexter is still under the radar. I don't think you need to stash him in a lot of leagues. You can pick him up at the beginning of the year next year or trade something little for him. So I agree.
Yep. Charlie Alpha Bravo. I've got TJ or Foyo Luakan just slightly ahead of Edwards this week in my ranks. It's splitting hairs. They're both LB1s. I think that the Jets will run the ball a ton, and Olakun will be there to rack up the tackles. So, Sincere McCormick or Tyrone Tracy for Quincy. I'm going to go Tyrone Tracy, just guaranteed touches. Even though it is a tough matchup, I think he's going to be guaranteed the rock. Mark Andrews, Ertz, or Fergie for tight end for JoJo. I'm going to go Zach Ertz here.
Yeah. And funny thing, I may just not be locked into offense like I used to be, but this is the first time I've seen Fergie for Ferguson. So I was like, okay, yeah. No, Andrews for me, I know it's been disappointing. I'm one of the people who has Andrews in a couple of different places, and I'm there with you. But it's Andrews, and then Cooker Pollard. I think
I'm going to go Cook because Pollard's dinged up.
Yeah, Pollard was dinged up. Spears is healthy. Probably Cook.
Yep. DeMar Hamlin or Worley. The back injuries. I am going to go Worley. He's just been playing too consistent. The last couple of weeks, he gets a great matchup versus Cincinnati. And like you said, no risk it with having someone coming off an injury designation late in the week. Those are always kind of scary to me. So
yeah, and I agree. I've got Worley about 8 spots higher than Hamlin.
Hey guys, love the content. Start 2 in a tackle heavy league. Wagner and Luvu, Wagner or Tyrese Knight. Do you want to start both Washington Commanders or break it up a little bit with?
I think I do. The snaps are just there. Like you said, it's going to be a weird game against New Orleans. We expect New Orleans to be absolutely terrible, which could translate to not very many snaps for the Washington defense. That's the one place where I might be a little bit concerned. But, with a first-time starting quarterback and both of these as linebackers who can get you sacks and have good tackle floors, I would probably still go Wagner and Luvu. But if I had to, if you want to spread your bets a little bit more, then I'd probably sit Wagner of the two, as sacrilegious as that sounds, given all he's done for the IDP community and tackles and points over the past seemingly forever. But yeah, I'd probably roll with the Washington guys. And if you want to spread your risk, I would take Wagner out of those two.
Yep. And I'm with you. I'm going to start both guys from Washington. Just that way I'm guaranteeing I'm locking that up, especially 80% with Tyrese Knight not playing 100% yet. For Jonathan needing a defensive back here, it's Derwin James for me. Hamilton has just been playing too deep for me. Derwin James is kind of involved up in that line of scrimmage. Snap shares where we like to see that. So
yeah,
this
is gross. You shouldn't be allowed to have Hamilton and James on the same roster. Right. But I'm actually a little bit higher on Hamilton than James. But again, this is like my safety 2 versus my safety 8. I'm not really gonna argue with you too much.
Keith needs to pick 2 of these linebackers: Quay, Nakobe Dean, or Jamie and Sherwood. I'm gonna go with the last 2, Sherwood and Nakobe Dean here over Quay Walker.
Yep, I agree.
McBride, Kelsey, or Jonnu Smith. There's no question. It ends with McBride. Just even though he hasn't have a passing touchdown yet, he's still going to be the volume king there for Kyler Murray.
Okay.
Sneaky. Do you have any sneaky secondary pickups? Obviously, Dane Belton's name has been thrown around here a little bit.
Yeah, and Worley is another one who's
Yep.
off the radar in a lot of places. So it'd be a good pickup. And honestly, check out the cornerback corner. I find lots of sneaky names on that are in solid places to play.
Yep.
Corners are overlooked in general. Even in some of my deepest leagues, I'm able to stream some solid to ideal kinds of corners. So yeah, I think those couple of guys, if you're looking safety, if you're looking corner, check out Johnny's article because you're not going to find any better resource out there.
Yep. And Be Slick, this is a defensive stream for sure. We're trying to answer all those IDP questions as best we can. We'll take care of the offensive ones. Even a kicker question once in a while gets thrown out there. So business is booming. Thoughts on Connor or Ward? Both are playing like a much bigger role than expected at the start of the season. Connor's been stepping up for Kansas City, playing really, really well. Jimmy Ward is going to step up and play that Jalen Petrie role in that Houston Texans defense. So I'm probably going to lean Jimmy Ward here just for volume and probably more consistency week to week out. That cornerback spot is kind of boom bust from week to week. So
yeah, if it's CB premium, then it's Connor. If it's not, it's Ward. Assuming Ward is designated as a safety, because I know that's where he is on PFF. There's some leagues that might vary, or it might not matter if it's just a DB spot. I think they're both good plays. I have them really close to each other. I have Ward slightly ahead of Connor.
Wide receivers: Higgins, McLaurin, or Tyreek Hill. I'm probably going to go McLaurin as my 1 there. Higgins is probably my 2, and Tyreek Hill 3.
Agree.
That was our follow-up question there about pivoting for Alex question. That was a good call there. With Crosby out for the season, I need to make a move for a pickup or D lineman. Parsons, Woonham, Jeffrey Simmons are my other defense. I don't know. I think you're probably set there with those 3. If you're starting all 3 of them, you're probably good. I'm going to guess at this point in the season, there's not a lot of trade options available or on the waivers. But like Scott said, do yourself a favor, head over to the IDP Show website, check out that DL Streaming 101 every week. You're pumping out some names with some low ownership numbers there, some raw stability. So,
yeah, and I would try to build a little bit of depth. Wanham is the only one. If you're starting 2, then Parsons and Simmons every week, no problem. You're starting 3. I like Wanham. I've called Wanham out as a streamer on a few occasions, but there are definitely some better week-to-week options. So, like Jeff was saying, take a look at that article, but also just see what else is out there, especially maybe some defensive tackles, because they do tend to get overlooked in DL leagues where there's not that specific designation, where you might be able to have a really high-end DT that you could have there and then just sort of play the matchup between Wanham and whatever that DT is that you pick up if you have room. Or you could always just stream Wanham for look and see who's the best DL streaming matchup for the week and just drop Wanham, pick up somebody else if they have a better matchup for the week and just kind of play it that way from here on out.
Yep. We got Bates or Bynum this week at a defensive back spot.
So I've got Bates, not by a ton. Bates is a tier 1, Bynum is a tier 2, but Bates is back end of tier 1. Bynum is solid, middle of the second. So give me Bates.
All right. Josh Hines-Allen or Nick Bonito. Bonito's been on a tear lately. It seems hard to sit him. You are right. He has been on a tear lately. A lot of big plays. Hines-Allen has also been playing really well for the Jaguars.
So this is one place where I'm planting a flag again. It is Josh Hines-Allen for me. I've got Bonito as a tier 3. I know Bonito has been hot, and I know, like I said, I've been a fan of him, but 56% of snaps last week. That's not a number that you can bank on for consistent production in the playoffs. I wish they were playing him more. With Baron Browning gone, they should be playing him more. But we've seen more Jonah Ellis. We've seen Cooper, obviously. It's a full-blown rotation there. I like Bonito in best ballish formats, but I think Hines-Allen has the clearer path to consistent points this week.
Phil wants to know Goff or Tua. It's Tua for me. Big shootout game, I think, this week. I think that's going to be a fun one to watch.
Mm-hmm.
TM42, sit one. Ernest Jones, Sherwood, or Wagner?
Wagner.
Sadly, we're going to sit Wagner. Yep. Andrew, thanks for the shout out here, giving us the name. Rashid Shaheed was the Saints wide receiver we were trying to think of, so appreciate that. Andrew's question is, do we start Alante Taylor or Devin Witherspoon? I'm also starting Ugo Amadi as well. I love Devin Witherspoon. He is big play upside. And if you're already starting one Saints defensive back, don't double dip there. Just go Witherspoon and Amadi there for me. So
yeah, I know I was talking about double dipping at corner, but that was only in those like best ballish formats. I would not do it normally. And I have Witherspoon a whole tier above where I have Taylor right now. So Witherspoon for me as well.
Got another team defense question here. We're looking at either the Washington Commanders or the Chiefs here. I know we had a couple other questions about the defensive earlier today. I'm going to go Kansas City here in this one versus Washington or over Washington.
Yeah, to me, they're too close to argue with you.
Ryan says, thanks. Sherwood it is. I need 2 linebackers, flex play Sherwood, Josie Jewell, Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean, or pivot to Buda Baker. Ooh, these are some great options. Needing 2, I'm just going to go Nakobe Dean and Sherwood and not even think about it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Great matchups there. Happy holidays. Carl Granderson or Kaylon Chason this week. Appreciate it for Roy.
So it's Granderson. I like Chason. I'd like to see what's going to happen there. The last time Crosby didn't play, Chason moved up to 69% of snaps, which is good, but not what Granderson is already playing. So we're kind of speculating about what Chason's role is going to be. They still got Charles Snowden. Tyree Wilson has shown some flashes. So there's too much uncertainty for me with Chason this week. You might see him in my streaming article next week, but Granderson is the guy for me right now.
Okay, a couple questions left here. We'll be all caught up. Bryson wants to know Foye, Wagner, Sherwood, or Murray this week and for the rest of the playoffs. Murray is, I haven't heard anything yet. Well, we're about 30 minutes out of the releases of the early start games, if they're active or inactive. Murray is going to be the question mark, I think, going through the playoffs just with the injury designation that he's carried the last couple of weeks. Wagner as a third option is a fantastic LB3 most weeks. But yeah, Murray's going to be kind of a headache, I feel, just because of the injuries going forward. So maybe like a Luke Gifford insurance handcuff there just to cover you for those weeks. So,
But I'm with you. I think he's well covered. This week, it's definitely Sherwood and I'm sorry, did you say for this week Wagner or Foye?
For this week, I'm probably going to go for Foye and Sherwood. Those are my 1-2. Wagner would be my 3, and then Murray my 4. So that's probably how I would have them the rest of the season too.
Yeah, I would agree with that for this week. And for the rest of the season, I would say Jeff is going to be back here next week. So next week, run this by him again, and they can look at the matchups and steer you in the right direction. So I wouldn't be adding anybody because of the situation or dropping anybody. I would be playing Foye and Sherwood, and then tune in again next week, drop another question, and it might be a different combination based on matchups.
All right, got a couple questions here. There's a few minutes left. Eric says, thanks, guys. I'll send in one more. PPR, Waddle or Shakir in the last spot. I'm going to go Shakir. He's just been a safety blanket for Josh Allen week in and week out. Devontae Smith for me over Xavier Worthy, just way more involved in the offense, consistent. And like you said, Scott, that they activated Hollywood Brown too. Devontae Smith, Zach Ertz, or Romo Dunze, already playing Jonnu at tight end. I'm probably going to lean Devontae Smith there. And then I'm going to double dip there with Hurts. So that way you get the double points when they score a touchdown. TJ Edwards or Jamie Sherwood this week.
Sherwood, I like Edwards a lot. But I think Sherwood's too good to not play right now.
Yep. And then I'm going to take Branch over Kyle Hamilton just because of the role that he's playing on that defense. A lot closer to the line of scrimmage, doing a much better job there. And last but not least, our friend Antonio has a question. He's got to pick 4 between Sherwood, Bolton, Pratt, Jewel, David. So of those 5, which one gets the sit for you?
I think it's Pratt. Pratt moving into the Logan Wilson role hasn't been as productive as he was in the Pratt role, which makes sense. It's a different kind of thing that he's doing on the defense. All good options, but Pratt would be the sit for me.
Yep. And then picking 2 out of these defensive linemen, Brian Burns, Chris Jones, Buckner, Leonard Williams.
Man, that's another good spot to be in. I've got Chris Jones as a tier 1, Buckner as a tier 1, Burns as a tier 1, and Williams as a back end tier 1. So this one is really brutal. I'd probably go.
I'm going
Burns,
BB here. Burns and Buckner.
And Buckner, yeah, just by a hair. That's such a congratulations on that team. That's just wild.
Yeah, he's a good friend of the show for sure. And then last one here, he's got then 2 of Highsmith, Buckner, Leonard Williams, and Chris Jones. So, assuming different league, I'm gonna go Highsmith and
Buckner
Buckner
and Jones. I've got Buckner and Jones like right next to each other. They're playing pretty much identical snaps. Jones still has that 90.6 pass rush grade where he can get home multiple times any kind of week. So yeah, that's my way to go.
Yeah, so Antonio needs some big points this week out of his last, because Thursday night he got must have had Stafford in. So Real Guru got to buy in both leagues, so just nice to listen today. Appreciate you stopping and listening. We're almost at 300 listeners today, Scott, which is fantastic. When you think about a Week 15 playoffs, half of our leagues are already thinking about the draft and things like that. So that's fantastic that we had that many friends join in. So Dean or Sherwood? I'm going to go Sherwood.
Yeah, this has just been the Sherwood show.
Sherwood show. Yep.
I'm with you. Good options, but Sherwood.
All right. Well, friends, we reached our 90 minutes for this weekend. Scott, I want to appreciate you for coming in not only this week, but all week. I know that you getting on here, we had to fight storms, hurricanes, power outages, sick kids, everything. So I appreciate all that you did to make this all happen. So
yeah, this has been a blast. I really do enjoy doing this. It's always torture setting my own lineups. So being able to help other people not feel that quite as much and get mad at me instead of mad at themselves, I'm absolutely happy to do that, because as someone who routinely beats themselves up over bad decisions, I'd much rather be able to deflect blame elsewhere or joy and success. I love seeing all the people in the chat who I've seen now 2 or 3 times throughout the season, and these great things like I'm on buys, but I'm just tuning in. I think it's great that I was able to join you, and thank you for having me. And I'll be tuning in next week and hopefully submitting some questions if I'm still alive in my league. So if I do well, I can give you some credit, and if I don't, I can not blame myself.
Yeah, you can bash the other co-host from the week before, right? So, all right, friends, we appreciate everyone for tuning in. Best of luck to you and your teams in Week 15. Hopefully, we'll see you back here Week 16. I think right now, Mr. Eric Harms is going to be jumping in next week, flying as my co-host. So we'll see you then. Best of luck and have a great week.